Hello, this is Jose Luis here at Parametric Camp, and welcome to another video in our series web-based drawing apps. In this one, I wanted to show you something that I did really quick, but it's actually kind of nice and effective. It's a drawing app where we have a cursor that is basically just a line that is rotating, but it's also transitioning through colors in the rainbow spectrum. And what that means is that I can move this cursor and then click and then start drawing with this brush that is rotating and create shapes. And what I've implemented in the app is that we can also just clear the screen and draw again. And we can also switch modes. And instead of drawing with these discrete lines, we can switch to a mode where the entire brush or the entire ribbon is continuous using quad shapes, which also still maintain this gradient of color between them, which I think it's very, very cool, right? So, and of course, we can save this to our sketch folder and then use it for whatever purposes, all right? So you're going to see that it's very simple. It's basically 60 lines of code with a lot of comments and gaps in between. It's a great example that combines many of the things that we have learned so far in this playlist, especially this technique of using two layers of drawing, one for temporary geometry and one for the permanent one, okay? So it's going to be a really fun exercise, okay? And a very short one, I think. So let's give it a try to code this together. Okay, fantastic. So like in the previous videos in this series, I'm going to start from a project that has an index HTML that basically only loads the P5 library, and then it loads this one sketch that is the main place where I'm going to add my code. And then it loads a CSS file that basically takes care of centering vertically and horizontally the canvas on my web page. Okay, so I'm going to ignore the rest because I'm going to focus on the JavaScript file, on the main sketch file, all right? So in this app, what I would like to do is I would like to implement something that I like a lot, which is a form of software or application where I can be creative, but where a lot is already given or offered to the user. There's a lot of things happening automatically or pre-scripted, and then it's the user through controlling, through curating, through biasing with minimal effort that can generate a lot of bang for your buck, right? So what we're going to do in this one is, as you saw in the introduction of this video, we're going to create this rotating cursor that is evolving over different colors in the hue spectrum and that we're going to use to draw to the canvas, okay? So we're going to build this incrementally and we're going to start from simple to more complex. The first thing that I would like to do is I would like to create the cursor, right? And the cursor is going to be a line that is going to be centered at the mouse position and that is going to be rotating over time. So let's start with that. So first of all, I'm going to define a variable called shape color, which is going to be black. All right, we're going to start with black and full black. It's going to be completely opaque. All right. And then we're also going to shape size, which is going to be, for example, 100 pixels. For example, a stroke weight is going to be, let's say, 5 pixels, all right? Or something along those lines. And then here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to always, not only with my mouse press, I'm going to draw a line that has that length. All right. So what am I going to do? I'm going to draw a line from where? From mouse X and mouse Y. And I'm going to start with a vertical line. Okay. So I'm going to start with mouse Y plus or minus 0.5 shape size, and then mouse X, so the same X, and then the opposite, all right? So if I do that, you can see that I already have my line being drawn there. I want to customize the styles. So for example, I'm going to say that the stroke color needs to be the color of the shape, and the stroke weight is going to be a stroke width. Let me replace this to width because otherwise it's going to be kind of confusing. All right, stroke width. All right, and then you can see that I'm going to do this a little bigger. It's not all right. All right, so the next thing that I want to do is I want to make it draw on my screen. Okay, I will make it the rotation then a little later. As you saw in the previous video, what I want to do is I want to have a permanent effect. Whenever I click, whenever my mouse is pressed, I want to imprint the shape of that line in the background of my sketch. So what we're going to use is this hybrid technique of having a canvas that has a buffer in memory where I'm drawing pixels and using that as the background image. But then on top of that, drawing temporary geometry that I refresh and that I change every frame. If you are new, if you're not following this playlist, or if you don't even know what I'm talking about, you're welcome to go to this video that is going to be popping in a card on the top right corner, and then check that video before I do this, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a variable that is going to be that buffer where I'm going to be drawing things in memory. So I'm going to create that buffer in memory. I'm going to clear the background, for example. And then what I'm going to do is that any single time that the mouse is pressed, if the mouse is pressed, then I'm going to do the exact same thing, but I'm going to do it on the buffer, okay? So if I run this, you can see that I am pressing my mouse and nothing is happening, but nothing is happening because what I need to do is I need to replace that the background of my canvas is always going to be white. I need to replace that with using the buffer or that image or that virtual P5JS, if you will, that I'm using it as the background itself. Okay, so now when I draw, you can see that all these effects start accumulating. And then maybe now it's a good time to decrease a little bit that transparency. Okay, beautiful. And you can see that only just the effect of having this, the effect of having a vertical bar as the brush is already giving me a lot of interesting effects. Okay, fantastic. So what is the next thing that I would like to do? I'm going to make the brush rotate over time. So what's that going to look like? Well, that's going to involve a little bit of trigonometry. So I hope you are okay with this one. So I'm going to first define a variable that is going to be called the angle, okay? And then the angle is going to start with 0, for example. And then what I would like to do now is I would like to be a bit more intentional about calculating what the coordinates of the 2 points that form my line, what those coordinates should be. Okay, so here I'm going to compute the coordinates of the line. All right, and then what you can see is that Copilot is really good at this. So what Copilot is basically doing is it calculating the coordinate of the first point as where my mouse is, plus half the size, plus the cosine of the angle. If the y is going to be the same, but with a sign, and then the other point is going to be the same, but negative. So this is great. And then the only thing that I need to do now is I need to replace here in the line is going to be drawn from x1 to y1, x2, and blah, blah, blah. And then here for the buffer line, the exact same thing. All right. Beautiful. So now my line is at 0 degrees, but it's not changing. What do I need to do? Well, every frame, every time I recompute the animation, I just need to increment the angle by a tiny bit. For example, 0.5. All right. And you can see that, oh, that's kind of fast. Let me do 0.25. All right. And then now, whoa. Whoa. This is kind of cool. All right. And then I can let go. And then, whoa. This is pretty neat. Okay. So I am getting the effect that I want. Fantastic. So This is great, but now what I would like to do is I would like to do something where the color of the line is changing over time. So in P5, what you can do is you can actually work, I don't want the editor, I want the reference. In P5, you can actually work in multiple color spaces. And it turns out that color mode. It turns out that when we are working in graphic environments, we typically work in RGB mode, or in other words, with red, green, and blue as the three values that define which color we want to set. However, there is this other color space called HSB, which is very convenient when you want to do color transitions, because HSB stands for hue, saturation, and brightness. Saturation and brightness are measures of how white or how colorful a color is, but hue is a measure of where in the rainbow spectrum a particular color is. So switching colors in HSB space is just as simple as maintaining the saturation and the brightness at maximum, and then just taking the hue value and making it move across a spectrum of 360 degrees. So maybe we could make a video at some point where we talk about HSB color, but sufficient to say that what we're going to do here is, first of all, I'm going to, in the main canvas, I'm going to switch the color mode to HSB, and I'm going to specify that I want the scales of my colors to be 360 for hue, 100 and 100 for saturation and brightness, and 100 for alpha, all right? I could keep this at 255 if I don't want to make changes here, but I'm going to keep this at 100 and I'm going to reduce this to 25%, okay? I'm going to do the same thing exactly for the buffer. I don't want the two places to have different color space, all right? Beautiful. And then the shape, the color of the shape is going to be it's going to be 0. Yes, I guess, yes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a new variable called hue, which I'm going to start at 0, okay? And then what is this going to be? The hue is going to be where in the rainbow I am. So it's going to be a number that is going to go from 0 to 360 and then loop back to 0. So how does that work? Well, what I'm going to do is here, before I change the color of the stroke or the weight, whatever, I'm going to recompute shape color. And shape color is going to be equal to the hue, and then saturation and brightness at maximum, and then whatever alpha I have. And then same here for buffer. I'm going to also, I'm going to set this, no, actually I'm doing it already here. I'm changing it here, all right? And then every frame, I want to change the color hue. Hue is going to increase by 1 unit. And if hue is greater than 360, I want to reset it back to 0. Are you ready for this? Hold on. Can you see the color changing? All right. And now can you what? Nice. And there you go. Right? Beautiful. This is looking pretty neat, huh? All right. And I think a last thing that I want to implement is, I think the individual lines being printed are actually quite cool, but I think we can do better than this. So what I would like to do is, I would like to do something where whenever I'm pressing the mouse, what I would like to do is, instead of drawing one single bar, what I would like to do is I would like to draw like a stelae, or like the shadow of the bar between where it is and what it was in the previous frame. So let me show you how to do that. What I will need to do is I will need to be able to handle myself remembering where the two coordinates of the line were in the previous frame. I'm already calculating them fresh every single frame, but what I should probably do is, like, once calculated, keep them somewhere in memory so that I have them accessible in the next frame. So what am I going to do? So I'm going to create a new variable and I'm going to call this previous line. All right. And this is going to be, for example, it's going to be an object. All right. Yes, it's going to be an object. So what am I going to do? I'm going to compute the coordinates of the line. Okay. I'm going to use them. And then after, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save them to previous line. And I'm going to say, I want to save x1, y1, x2, and 2, and y2. And if I do this notation, then the values of x1, y1, x2, and y2 will be saved under the properties with the same name. It's like a JavaScript shortcut, okay? So a proof of that is that, for example, anytime I can just go to the console and then just type here previous line, and then you can see that I get an object that has x, y, y1, x2, and y2 with the values, with the coordinate values. So, okay, so then what we need to do here is when the mouse is pressed, what I want to do now is I don't want to draw this line. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say the buffer. I don't want to draw any stroke. All right. I'm going to draw with the fill color is going to be the shape color. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a trapezoid, or in other words, a quad. And what does that look like? I'm going to go back to the reference. And in the reference, where is the reference? I'm going to go back to the reference. Yes, and a quad is basically a shape that has 4 corners, right? And that's it. It's 4 corners, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to then say buffer dot quad, and it's going to be a quad from where I was, previous line xy, y1, x2, y2, and then the coordinates of x2 and y2 first, so that I am not crossing like this, so that I am doing like a clockwise shape, and then x1 and y1. And are you ready for this? It's going to be pretty cool. So if I now go, you can see that the effect is continuous because I'm basically drawing a lot of quads next to each other. And it does feel much more like I am using like a very thick marker to draw on the... And I don't see why we shouldn't be able to switch between one mode or the other. So maybe we want to include something here where we say, for example, I don't know, brush mode is going to start like a line, all right? And then here, function key typed, and then and then I'm going to use a switch else, switch key, and then if the case is, for example, L, then shape, no, brush, what did we do? Brush mode. Then brush mode should be a line. Otherwise, if the case is R, so it's going to be rectangle, I'm going to call this quad. All right. All right. And then this is going to close here. Okay. And then here we can have if brush mode equals line, then do all this stuff here. Otherwise, if brush mode is quad, then just do all this stuff here. I can't believe how fast typing with Copilot is. So now I have this, and then if I press Q, all right. All right. And then maybe I want to have a key here where I say C, and then I clear the background. Okay. So I clear and I press C, and then I basically delete everything. All right. And then this is pretty neat. Okay. All right, fantastic. And last, I will probably want to save. Yes, exactly. This is so good. All right, so, and I'm going to clear, and I'm going to now use this, beep, beep, and I'm going to save, and yes, my art is right there, ready for consumption. Okay. So beautiful. This was what, 60 lines of code. Can you see how elegant and with a lot of comments and with a lot of white spaces? So I really like this example because it really is this idea of a lot is given to me by the app. So whoever designed this app had a lot of biases. But then what that helps me is to find a language that the author is already giving me for how to draw. And then for me, it becomes really easy to do that drawing. Something else that we could do, for example, is maybe the length of the line depends on the speed of how fast you're drawing. There's many things that we could do to expand this, okay? But I think so far it's looking pretty good. And I think I'm very happy where this is as a quick drawing app sketch of sorts. All right, fantastic. And what are we going to do next? I think in the next videos, I'm going to try to teach you more ways of combining drawing with permanent pixels, drawing with temporary geometry, maybe having like a database of shapes or other things like that. All right. We'll see more examples down the line in the playlist. Okay. Thank you very much so far. If you liked this video, tell your friends about it. Tell them like, hey, let's have some fun learning how to make drawing apps. If you make drawing apps of yourself, please, please, please join our Discord and share your work with us. And in the meantime, I'll see you around. Thank you. Bye-bye.